share a little bit of a story first of all about a time where I recognised that I'd got it all so wrong when it came to worrying about what other people think. And it was back when I was younger. But I remember that I had this boss, I had this manager who scared the living daylights out of me. And I was only young. So it was this woman who was incredibly powerful, very loud and forthright, and I used to just dread going to work. Yeah, give me a hello or a thumbs up if you're arriving on. She used to scare me so much that on the night I would be overthinking and worrying about everything I'd done and everything I thought she thought of me. And it got to a point where she used to pick me up on the way to work and I'd just sit there in like utter silence. I was basically sat in fear of this woman. I just thought, oh my gosh, like she just must think I'm a total egghead. I'm like getting this all wrong. And she never seemed to be very pleasant. In fact, her management skills now, looking back at it, were just horrendous. She wasn't a manager, she was a bully. But I was young and I didn't know what was going on, and I just assumed that was what it was like working in London. So this woman really got under my skin, and I was so young, I didn't have anyone to turn to. God, it sounds like a real like sad story, doesn't it? But it was, you know, that kind of fresh out of uni, first kind of like job, and I'm like, woo! I remember thinking, I just don't think I can last at this job. I'm going to have to leave because this is just horrendous. And then something happened. It was maybe, I don't know, the time scale, a few months in, and it's getting worse and worse and worse. I'm now this nervous wreck because of this, because I believe because of this woman, because of the way she was treating not just me, but everybody. And I would overthink it and worry and stress and think, oh my gosh. And then one day I came in and she had gone. And I got a message saying she couldn't pick me up, off somebody. I needed to make my own way to work, which was fine. I was quite relieved. I didn't have to sit there in terror. Got to work and she disappeared. And I was like, what has gone on? And then somebody else came in and said, oh, so your boss has had a nervous breakdown. And I remember thinking, oh my goodness, I have spent 8 weeks of my life worrying that I am the problem and that I have got this all wrong and that I need fixing or whatever. And actually what had happened is I'd assumed that was the result, that was the reason, and I was wrong. I was completely wrong. It was nothing to do with me. In fact, none of her bad behaviour was to do with me. None of the way she treated me and everybody else had anything to do with me or anyone else actually in that office. It was purely down to her own mental health. But what I'd done is I'd taken it and believed that it must have meant that I'm broken and there's something wrong with me. And I'll never forget it, because from that point onwards, I remember saying to myself, Kirsty, you need to, in future, stop assuming. Stop assuming the worst case scenario every time when you don't have the facts. What I'd done is I believed that I could mind read the full outcome, and I couldn't. But what I'd done is I'd turned the whole thing on myself, caused my own mental health to be shaken up, when actually I had diddly do to do with me. And when she went, it was like this, whoo, breath of fresh air. And I left the job anyway. And I can't remember what I went to do next. I think I went travelling or something. But it was a huge lesson. How we deal with that mind, that overthinking mind, that gets us into a pickle. Underneath it all, mostly is because there is a hidden insecurity. And hidden insecurities are easy to develop, and they tend to happen when we're younger. So they tend to happen, not always, but mostly they tend to happen because we've experienced something as being a child, maybe at school, maybe with a friendship group, a family, that has caused us some trauma of some sort of kind that's made us feel insecure inside about who we are. And so then when something happens, like what happened with my old boss, immediately I didn't even question that it was about anything to do with her. I immediately brought the blame and put it onto myself when it wasn't anything to do with me at all. Ultimately, insecurities are unprocessed past stresses from past events as we've been growing up that we have never finished the cycle on. And we actually call this a dysregulated nervous system. And a dysregulated nervous system is way more common than you can imagine. And you will know if your nervous system is dysregulated because you will have symptoms like consistent anxiety. You will have a mind that seemingly will never let you relax or be able to be calm. You will recognize that you can go from low mood to anxiety, low mood to anxiety. There's a consistency to how you feel, and how you feel is not in alignment with your greater good. Your greater good is somebody who is naturally confident, and confidence isn't arrogance, by the way. Confidence is self-belief, self-value, self-worth. You don't have to be loud to be confident. You don't have to be the center of stage to be confident. It's an inner state. It's a state of balance. And every single one of us that has been born on this planet was not born unconfident. We have experienced things that has shaken our confidence, and that is what has built up the insecurities that then creates behaviours as an adult, like taking things personally, like overthinking things and worrying about what other people think due to that. Now, before I go any further, I really need you to know though, that even though this sounds so tragic and so over the top or whatever, it's easily rectified and very common. And it doesn't make you a bad person or a less of a person or even broken. It just means that there's unresolved past stress that just needs dealing with. And that's that. So how do we do that? Well, one of the main things one of the number one things to be able to get yourself into a state where you can actually address the unresolved past stress is by going through a process. And one of these things is when we dive really deep into this in my membership, but there are things you can do yourself, and we're going to go through a 4-step process now that you can implement that's going to help you shift your relationship to taking things personally. So if you are ready, give me a yay. I'm just going to move my chair back. I always have to stand up when I'm doing live because I feel like the energy's more there. So what is the first thing? Okay, right. I remember seeing a clip, it was ages ago, with Russell Brand. It was brilliant. I love Russell Brand. He's not everyone's cup of tea, but he's my flavour. I like him. And he had done this YouTube clip, something like that, and it was brilliant because he just said, look, if you are worried about what other people think, you need to remember this. Number one, it has nothing to do with you what other people think of you. I was like, wait a minute, what do you mean? What do you mean? Let me just process that. It's got nothing to do with you what others think of you. Why? Because people will process their own identity, their own vision of someone else through their own life experiences, good, bad, or indifferent. And all of us have got arguably good ways of seeing the world and questionable ways that are limiting and keep us perhaps small. So how someone sees you is not really a reflection of who you are. They see you how they are, not what you are. So it has nothing to do with you, really, what they believe you are or aren't. And when I heard that, I was like, oh my gosh, that makes so much sense. Like, why do we even get bothered about someone else's view on you when you've no idea what's going on for them in their own unconscious mind and their own childhood and their own traumas that they've not processed? And ultimately, all human beings are a work in progress, right? So it would be crazy to even begin to try and base your inner contentment and happiness on somebody else's opinion of or not of you. And when I heard this, I was like, oh my gosh, there's so much freedom in that. So I want you to remember this. Number one is, it's none of your business what anyone else thinks of you, actually. Why? Because they are processing their experience through their own unconscious mind that you have no control over, no idea what's going on, and ultimately, you don't know what work or no work they've done on themselves to be able to let go of their stuff, if you like, that is going to tarnish their view. So number one of why we don't take things personally is because it's got nothing to do with us. Their stuff is their stuff. Okay, that's number one. And I'm going to dive a bit deeper into that in number three, because there is a similar connection with number three, but I'll tell you that when I get to it. So that was number one. Stop worrying about what other people think, because ultimately it is their stuff, not yours. Number two, I had to write this down. Number two, you'll be able to relate to this, is self-worth and self-confidence. So as I started this conversation, ultimately, balancing your self-worth and self-confidence is one of the most important things that you can ever work on. Why? Because it influences absolutely everything in your whole entire life. Everything. So if you are operating your life through a glass half full, we've all heard that phrase, then that's how you're going to perceive your life. But if you're operating it through a glass full, then that's how you'll perceive your life. The only way to shift and change your relationship to your inner self-worth and confidence is to directly take action to remove what is causing you to feel a lack of confidence in the first place. And what is that? Well, it goes back to what I said right at the beginning. It's all the way back to the fact that the reason why our confidence gets shaken is because we've experienced something somewhere along the way, whether it's once, twice, three times, that has shaken our confidence and downloaded into our unconscious mind some unprocessed stress that we've never got on with and dealt with. Because let's face it, in the moment of going through something stressful, do we go, whoa, just a minute, wait a minute, I just need to sit down and process this? No, we muddle through in the moment to survive, because that is the programming of a human being. Our DNA is survival. So we don't sit around, have a chat about it, Google it, get on Facebook, speak to friends. No, when something stressful is happening, we muddle through. That's natural. So then suddenly we get through that stressful event. Let's say it is, we've been at work and there's been a fallout with a colleague. Perhaps you've had an unexpected death in the family. Maybe there has been a breakup in your relationship. There's been a divorce. There's been whatever there may be. Maybe it's just a relationship without a marriage. Perhaps there's been financial issues. Maybe you have just started a new job and got there, and then there's a lot of pressure, a lot of demands. There's someone in the office you're not particularly grooving with, and that makes you feel uncomfortable. There's difficult conversations, and the list goes on, right? Normal stuff that happens, some periodically, some often. What we do is obviously we just muddle through, as I said before. And what this does to us is it creates a build-up. And the best way to describe it is our unconscious mind is pretty big, but it's not infinite. And even though when we've got this unprocessed stress, it will live in there quite nicely, what tends to happen is we then start to manifest and create things in our objective world, like stressful things that re-trigger that emotion back up into our experience. Now, not all the time, but we might be like, let's say we've had, as a child, we've gone through some stress, we've not processed it. Let's say it is, I don't know, your parents broke up, you had to move schools and make new friendships. All that was quite intense at the time. You buried it because that's how you survived, that's how most of us survive. Then you've grown up, and on top of that, you've then gone on to and marry somebody and it didn't work out. So then that's been put in there too. And now you've got these events that you've never dealt with, and you're at work and something not that major happens, but it's stressful, like, I don't know, a deadline or a serious meeting. What it does is it triggers all the old stuff back up, which makes it feel 10 times worse. This is what causes us then to feel not very confident, to have increasing anxiety, to have consistent bouts of stress and anxiety where we don't feel we ever really get to level back down and be calm again. All it is your body saying to you, you got to deal with this. You got to deal with it. So the first thing that has to happen is the unprocessed past stress needs to be identified. Now, I've got a couple of load of freebies of like of little steps that you can take to be able to do that, but because the whole of the training is that really, it's another big training. And if you haven't already received that, you can just go to the link in my Instagram, which I'm going to tag my Instagram afterwards, which is just im.kirstybortoft, and you click the link, you sign into that, and you'll get over the next 5 days some free downloadable I think there's a PDF with some hot tips, and there's also a masterclass, which are really good. After you've downloaded that, you may still feel like, I still need some help. That's okay. That would be normal. I had to work with somebody to resolve mine, not because I didn't understand it, but because sometimes you just need that support, so that, you know, sometimes you start like drifting off. I know, well, that's my journey, definitely. Well, when you drift off and you've got something to be accountable with, you can't do that because they'll bring you back on. So, you know, if you're looking for more support, then just DM me. But get the downloadables first, because they will really help. And all you do is just go to the link in my bio in my Instagram, and it's all there, completely free. Right, so self-worth, self-confidence has to be addressed, and if your self-worth and self-confidence is not where it should be, you will know, then it is a priority, because until you start working on resolving these unprocessed past stresses, it's going to cause you poor sleep, anxiety, fatigue, exhaustion, low confidence, inability to like make clear decisions, brain fog, low mood. I mean, the list goes on. Everybody has their Achilles heel, but sometimes we can get more than one symptom. I know that mine started to manifest into migraines at one point as well. I wasn't getting them often, but I was getting them, and it was just my body saying, deal with this, Kirsty. So that's number 2. Number 3. Okay, what I said at the beginning. Number 3, really important, and that is stop assuming. We all think, especially when we're stressed, we tend to start believing that we're mind readers, and we'll start believing or reading or thinking that we know what other people are thinking of us. Well, I've got a brilliant technique for this, and it's called the mirror effect. Right. Now, if you've never heard of this before, the mirror effect is nothing more, it's simply this. When you hold a mirror up, what do you see? You see yourself, okay, your own reflection. Right, when somebody is directing some information about you to you, whether you've heard it or you believe you've heard it, the reality is the content of what they are directing actually is a direct reflection of what they are holding in their unconscious mind. It has nothing to do with you. It is a reflection of them. So next time somebody's unkind, or next time somebody says something that you don't particularly like, you got to remember this is not about you. It's a direct reflection of them, actually. And this is something I've had to really learn. The more I'm getting out on social media is amazing, and I'm connecting with loads of wonderful people, but at the same time, yeah, you then get the keyboard warriors who are very opinionated. Who knows who these people are, but they're not very kind. And I remember the first time it happened, I was like, oh my gosh, someone doesn't like me. And now, you know, I realise that it's not anything really to do with me. They've heard what I've said, but they haven't necessarily listened. They've translated it through their own process in their own unconscious mind, and come added 2 and 2 and got 10. So I can't be responsible for that, and neither can you be responsible for what other people think or say of you. So you need to remember, if someone's doing that, hold that mirror up, because all they're doing is they're talking actually about their own unprocessed past stress that they're carrying in their unconscious mind, but they don't realize that. And they're doing something called projecting outwards, projecting their own pain onto someone else, their own pain onto something else. And this is happening all the time. It's very common, but it's not anything to do with you, and you need to remember that. So next time someone is diverting their intense energy towards you, just remember the mirror effect. Honestly, it's a game changer. Total game changer. Right, and number 4, what do I have for number 4? Is number 4, triggers. Right. So you are at work and you're chatting to some colleagues, something's said, and then you leave after having that conversation. You're making a cup of tea and you walk away, something's said, and you can feel a trigger in you. And a trigger is something that makes you feel uncomfortable. You know it. You feel sometimes angry instantly. Sometimes it makes you feel sad instantly. It evokes an emotion that is negative. So it's never something positive. You feel triggered in a negative way. When we experience what we call a trigger, there is 2 ways that people will generally deal with that. The first and most common way is to react and go "Roar," and say something back, or not react verbally outwards because you don't like confrontation, but instead react internally in your head, go back to your desk and have a million different conversations of what you wish you should have said, or what you wish you should have said. But all a while you're having these imaginary conversations in your head, you're getting more and more wound up, more and more angry, more and more resentful. Okay, this is a trigger that has now turned into a bit of a nightmare. Why? Because wherever your attention goes in your mind, so if you are focused on downward spiraling thought, if you are focused on a narrative that is negative, remember your unconscious mind has got no idea what is reality and what is thought. So it will instantly react. It will instantly react to that negative dialogue, believing that you are actually under attack, you're under threat. And it will then do its job really well to protect you. It will send a message to the mind and tell it that you're under attack, and instantly chemicals will be released, hormones into your bloodstream, stress hormones, because it wants to flood your bloodstream so that you are prepared to get away from that threat. So bish bash bosh, 90 seconds later, your whole bloodstream is now ringing in cortisol, and now you're starting to experience the physical effects, which is your heart's going, you're infuriated, your eyes are dilating, your heart's beating fast, and you are pumped and fired up for a fight. You are ready to be able to give this person what for, even if you don't actually do it in your head, in your experience. And now you start to feel anxious. And now you start to feel, oh God, worried about who else has heard this story and what else is everyone else thinking of you. And you work yourself up and up and up. Right, this solution is a no-go anymore, right? We've got to make a deal, please. Because this will cause you one outcome that you don't want. And I'm sure, like me, you've probably done this a few times in the past. And I can tell you from my experience, and I'm sure you can join in with this, that there's only one outcome to that, to going down that path, and that is you feeling horrendous. You feeling shocking, horrendous, overwhelmed, anxious, stressed, and all the rest. So what do we need to do that's different then when we're feeling triggered? The only thing you can do when you feel triggered is tell yourself, number 1, okay, so I'm feeling triggered. I really want to react, whether it's internally or whether that's just out loud. but I know where it leads to. So instead, I'm going to turn this trigger into a gift. Now, I know this is not easy, but growth is not necessarily comfortable in the beginning, but it is necessary for change. And that's really important to hear. Growth, change, or growth and you shifting through something is never comfortable in the beginning, but it's necessary and it doesn't last. I promise, I promise, I promise. It's only for a short time, and then you will start to shift and change towards that particular new action. So what do? Number one, okay, this trigger is a gift. Boom, right, I still feel like crap. What do? And instead, what you do is you go back to your desk, or whether you're at home or wherever you may be, and you go back to the feeling that you're actually experiencing. So you're feeling in the pit of your stomach, you're feeling that anger, that resentment, that fury, whatever it may be. And you literally sit there, you take a breath, you close your eyes, and you give yourself permission to not push this experience away, because the natural tendency is to go, I don't want it, it doesn't feel good. That's what we all do naturally when things don't feel good. I don't want to feel this, it doesn't feel good. But that, my friend, will cause resistance, and resistance will do the very thing that you don't want it to do, which is it will keep it in play. You need to let it go, let it go, let it go. The only way to let it go is to stop resisting and start accepting. That's it, period. So you tell yourself, you give yourself permission, I give myself permission right now to accept and experience this feeling, this emotion, this energy emotion that I'm experiencing right now. And you allow yourself to fully immerse into the experience. Bish, bash, bosh. Once you do that, you will start to shift your relationship to it, and it will start to demise. It will start to go. In fact, within 90 seconds, you literally can clear your entire bloodstream of all the cortisol. 90 seconds, that's a minute and a half. That is not a lot of your life. But you have to take the action to get the result, right? You have to take the action. I can lead you to the water, I can't make you drink it. And it's in the action taking that mental health changes. It's not in the talking about it, it's not in the reading about it, it's not in the anything else, right? The only way that we shift our mind health is by actioning and actually addressing the root cause of why we feel the way we feel. So to recap, number one, ding, ding, ding. Okay, we're going to keep our emotions in check. We're going to stop worrying about what people think, because we're going to remind ourselves that it's none of our business what other people think of us. Two, once we've done that, we're going to then have a check-in with our self-worth, self-confidence. If it is not in check, then we know there is some work to do. There is some unresolved past stress in our unconscious mind that must be sorted. It must be resolved. The process must be completed. And the only way to do that is to take action. And if you're not taking action to take small steps towards building your confidence and self-worth back up, it will never change. And the only way to do that is by addressing the unresolved past stress in the unconscious mind, by letting it go. Three, the mirror effect. When somebody says something unkind or you believe that they have, you've got to remember the mirror effect. Remember what that means. It means that actually when people are projecting things outwardly, objectively, towards you, they're not talking about you. They're talking about them. And number four, probably the most important part, is if you feel triggered by what other people think or saying or thinking or what you believe they think, then you, instead of immersing yourself into the experience and making it 10 times worse, like I said 5 minutes ago, you use this as a absolute invite for growth, and you turn this from a negative thing into some growth, and a gift. And you do that by literally addressing the unconscious stress in your unconscious mind, by experiencing it, accepting it, and it will then start to dissolve. And I get, right, this is a huge amount of different activities that you've maybe never done before in your life, and it does take practice. Everything I teach is not difficult, but it is different. And I understand fully, because I work with people all day long in this field, that there is a big barrier between what I talk about and how I share to do it and people doing it. And that barrier is their relationship with their own egoic mind. And the egoic mind is the number one nemesis. But I don't know, I've never met anybody whose nemesis is different. Whether it's addiction we're talking about, whether it is relationships we're talking about, divorce, whether it's about being good enough at work, feeling enough, whether it's losing weight, the number one nemesis is your relationship with your mind. And until you master that, it's hard. It is hard. Well, it's hard until you know how. And then once you know how, it's not so hard. And this has been part of my huge journey for the last 15 plus years. This is the journey I've been on, is mastering my relationship with my mind, which has taken me near and far, doing lots of crazy things, from living with monks to studying with incredible doctors around the world, and losing my own will to live through my own mental health journey back 17 years ago. So I get it, but you don't have to suffer with that. You don't need to do what I did. You don't have to go and live with monks, and you don't have to become a monk, and you don't have to do all the stuff that I did to be able to get there. We have a direct route to success. And the first part is to keep rewatching this. Keep rewatching what I've just been speaking about tonight, because this is integral steps to make some changes. But if you like what you've heard and you feel the value in what I've delivered tonight, then don't leave it where it's at. Come and get the support to get the direct route to success, so you can shift your relationship to that nemesis, which is the relationship with our own thinking mind, the relationship to our emotions. The emotions are the language of the body, and thoughts are the language of the mind, right? The two work simultaneously together. They can't not. But most people don't have most of us were never taught what to do with these two areas of our lives. We've just been winging it. Hence the reason we feel like we're in a pickle. But honestly, you're not broken. You just need the tools to be able to redirect yourself. So if you have a go at the things that I've just said tonight, but you really feel drawn to getting that extra support because you are done with feeling how you feel. You want to get your energy back. You don't want to walk into work and feel paranoid about what people are thinking. You don't want to stand up and have to share something in a meeting and then second guess it afterwards anymore. You don't want your relationships to be on the demise because your self-worth and self-confidence is just not where it used to be, and you're doubting who you are, and you don't feel sexy anymore, and you don't feel like you're worthy anymore, and you just don't feel enough. You don't want to wake up in the morning where you already feel anxious and you haven't left your bed, and there's this the cloud of doom that's hanging over you, that's making you think that something impending is going to happen any second now, but it's going to be bad. You don't want to feel like that anymore. You want to be energized. You want to be able to be with your family and present with them in the moment, rather than always consistently being somewhere else other than what you're doing. You want to enjoy your life, your successes that you've created. You want to be immersed in thriving in life and not bloody surviving life. And if that's you, DM me on Instagram. I am Kirsty Bortoft, and we will chat, right? Because I know that my journey took me quite a long time, but now it doesn't take me long to get a client from A to B at all, because we have the process. I've been through it, and hundreds of my clients have been through it, and literally keep watching this replay, because it will give you 4 very important steps to change your relationship to what other people think. But if you want to really dive deep into changing your relationship with the nemesis of the mind, then reach out. Just reach out. I'm here to help. And on the other side of that is energy back, feeling alive, making better choices, feeling like you're not just your mind health, but your physical health feels better. And honestly, The mind is so powerful. It's crazy. I mean, thoughts are so powerful. It's unbelievable. And wherever your attention goes, energy flows. So if your life is constantly on worry and overwhelm and what if this goes wrong and what if that goes wrong, or going back into the past and ruminating, going, I wish I'd just done that. I wish things had just been different and then I wouldn't be in this place in my life, then you're going to create a whole lot more of that vibrational experience. But when your life is in a place where you are consciously deciding to be present because you know how, and yes, life still projects and gives you uncertainties and circumstances that are sometimes not ideal, but I tell you what, it's much easier to deal with those circumstances and situations when you're not living in an overdraft emotionally consistently. When you are living already from a place of lack, and I don't mean in a physical sense, I mean in an emotional sense, then when something small happens, it feels like a mountain. When something big happens, it feels like, oh, that's it, game over, can't do it, done. But when you are feeling already energized and you're feeling like content and fulfilled and you're back in your A game because that is what you deserve, then you can deal with stuff. You can deal with stuff in the moment, right? And stressful stuff still happens because that's life. But when you are in that place, it's easy. So listen, I've rattled on way too much, so I'm just going to say this one last time. Go back and watch the replay of this because it's important that you download what I've said. It's a lot of information in a very short time, but you start to master these steps, it makes a big shift in your life. And secondly, if you're ready to address that nemesis, the mind, the thinking mind, and the negative emotions, then DM me on Instagram. It's iam.Kirsty Bortoft. I'll put it under this once I post it anyway. Just DM me and we'll chat.